and welcome back to the third and final lesson in the introductory tutorial series. And this one is called Rapid Application Development, an Introduction to 3D RAD. This is the software that we're going to be using, and the 3D stands for 3D, obviously, because these games are made in three-dimensional space as opposed to 2D, such as those games that you see in the days of the Super Nintendo or some of the more popular indie titles that are coming out, where there might be 3D elements, but it's primarily a top-down or a side-scroller, whereas 3D is more of a first-person shooter or an open-world RPG where you can run around and interact with stuff. So, as we begin, what is 3D RAD and why should I use it? And I have a picture from anyone who knows this is a reference from The Matrix, when Morpheus presents Neo with the red and the blue pill, and he has to decide which one he's going to take to find out if he really wants to understand what the Matrix is and the truth behind the uprising of the machines and the revolution by the humans. So what is 3D RAD and why should I use it? Well, 3D RAD is, as I said, it stands for Rapid Application Development, and one of the reasons that we would use this software is because of its simplicity. 3D RAD is unbelievably easy and intuitive to use, and I believe that gives it some merit, especially if you're just starting in this and you don't know which engine to use. 3D RAD is also cost effective. The main reason is because it doesn't cost anything at all. Now, of course, a developer does take donations, but the software is free to use, and you can publish what you make with it. Another reason to use 3D RAD is the learning curve. The learning curve in this software is almost a straight line. It is so incredibly easy to pick this thing up, and with just a few short lessons in the actual software, you will wonder why you ever used anything else. Another reason we might use this software is because of its individuality. You see, 3D RAD, although there are other programs that do similar things, and it is a software that creates games, once you start to use it, even if you've used other software, you will soon realize that it gives such a unique approach to development, and because of its intuitive nature, it's really its own animal. And if you're an individual or you are a very, the type of person that just likes to be number one, you're going to love this software. And of course, another reason is if you are a non-programmer, you don't know how to code. That's a big thing. Some people just don't know how to code. They don't understand it. But I can tell you this right now, after you take some of the scripting lessons that I am going to include in this tutorial series, you are going to be a coder, and you're going to enjoy it, and you're going to wonder why it either took you so long to learn it, or you never figured it out previously. However, 3D RAD can make games without writing a single line of code, and it's just as easy, although the coding that you do will actually make things easier yet. But none of this means that the program is cheap. It has limitations, just like every other software, but it is absolutely incredible. So what I want to do is step back for a minute and talk about the simplicity, because I think it's important that we ask ourselves, well, if it's so great, is it any better or worse, or what makes it such a nice program to use? Isn't there other programs that can do more and have more features? I mean, look at all these games that we see on the consoles and the indie developers. I mean, can we really do that with this program? And if so, why would you choose this? Well, we're going to look at a bunch of different game engines by comparison, and I'm not going to go into their individual features. I'm just going to give you a brief explanation of what they are. Some of them you might have heard of, some of them you may have not. But when I do this comparison, by the time I get to the end, your mind might just be blown. So, we're going to start with Blender. Now, this screenshot in Blender, I just grabbed these off of Google Images. I don't feel the need to give credit to anybody because these are just generic images that people post from different projects. But just looking at this, if you saw this, where would you start? I mean, if you know anything about developing games, you can kind of get an idea of what's going on here. I see a character here, kind of looks like a rabbit. I see a lot of weird lines all over the place. That might be geometry or part of the world. I see this huge list of things over here, and I see all this stuff down at the bottom of the screen. I see what looks like a timeline, maybe for animation, I don't know. And you've got your file system. There's a lot going on here. And Blender is actually a really good program. But just look at that screen. That is like so much. The learning curve on this is high. Even if you do tutorials, this just doesn't appeal to me because there's so much going on at once. Let's take a look at another one. Let's look at DX Studio. Okay, this one's a little outdated. As you can see, it's, somebody's using this in XP. And we got some pretty pictures here of a scene that's being developed, and it looks like they put a render on here for the output of the game. But again, you've got all of these buttons here up top and side. You've got this object list. You've got all the resource list down here and stuff going on. Maybe models and images. There's just all this stuff. Okay, it's just not something that if I downloaded and picked up, I could just be like, okay, what do I do? We'll go, and here's Torque 3D. Now, Torque 3D is another one that I've tried, and Torque 3D, this doesn't look too bad. You've got your big workspace here. We've got all these buttons up here. Wonder what they do. Looks like you've got an object list over here with some properties, and there's still a lot going on. There's just all this stuff, and it just looks confusing at first glance. Okay. How about Unreal Engine? Now this image isn't too bad because this is kind of looks like a blank project. We've got our model space here, and this maybe is the output. This window here looks like different resources you can use and the different packages they come from. And you've got actors, groups, level. Over here we've got what looks to be you can design primitives and cameras and different things. But again, I don't even know what's behind this window, but there's just so much. And this is actually Unreal 3. I know there's Unreal Engine 4 out right now, but it's expensive. So even if you got a copy of this, there's a lot of stuff going on. Very confusing. Hard to grab a hold of the horns of this thing right from the get-go and start making stuff. How about Game Maker? Anybody ever heard of this one? Game Maker is really neat because it was one of those programs that promised to bridge the gap between people that didn't know how to code and people that were proficient game developers. And it's got a really easy to use. I've used it. Never made anything really with it, but it's got an intuitive drag and drop interface. Everything's linked together. You've got properties, sound, sprite, object. You've got this object list, and you've got all of these different things up top. So again, Game Maker is nice, but again, Game Maker is primarily for 2D games. You can do 3D with it, but it's primarily designed for 2D games. Same thing goes with the next one, RPG Maker, which is actually one of my favorites. I love RPG Maker. I am an owner of a licensed versions of RPG Maker VX Ace. This is RPG Maker XP. I have made a game demo with this. I'll have to show that sometime. Although to play it, you actually need RPG Maker installed. For some reason, the install package didn't work properly, and it won't work unless you have RPG Maker installed on your system. We have the output here, where you put all the tiles. We've got your objects here. We've got the maps. We've got all the different options up top. RPG Maker actually isn't too hard to get involved with. Thing is, again, it's primarily a 2D tile-based engine. Specifically designed to help you make top-down RPGs like Pokemon or Final Fantasy 2 or 3. So this one, it's alright, it's not too hard to pick up, but again, you do need to there is a learning curve to this, and you have to learn Ruby scripting native to this. Let's take a look at Unity. Now this is one that probably almost everybody has heard of. Unity is interesting because it is similar in many ways to 3D Rad, but again, look at this. Okay, we got our hierarchy here, object hierarchy. We've got the development screen, or this is possible. It's the output if you press play. Okay, we've got the scene. You've got your project files here, and look at the inspector. The inspector is the object properties. Look at all this stuff. I mean, that's just insane. when you look at this, even if you know what you're doing, it's just so much. And maybe you'll use all of this, and maybe you'll only use certain bits, but Unity, and this screenshot is actually kind of generous. Unity, there's so much going on in Unity. Yeah, you can design the models, it's got the physics, it's all that stuff, but it's so complicated. If there was some program, some way you could just cut all this out and still make it effective. And that's where 3D Rad comes in. This is what 3D Rad looks like, and I know the image is really stretched, but I have an HD monitor, so it's a widescreen by default. This is the 3D Rad user interface, okay? Up at the top corner, you've got 4 menu options. On the left here is your object hierarchy or object list, and in the middle is your output, or your editing workspace. The space over here to the right doesn't ever even do anything. Okay, this is it. Objects, workspace, object, workspace. That's it. There are no buttons, there are no anything. It's just that beautifully simplified. And this is one of the big appeals to this, and why I'm so interested in using this engine and teaching you, because even if you don't use it to make big titles, it's going to get you the foot in the door. You're actually going to be able to develop a games portfolio that you can take to different people and say, look what I've done. If you don't have formal education, or maybe you do have formal education but you never made anything, 3D Rad's going to get you in. Oops. It's going to get you in, I'm telling you. So I hope that this video has enlightened you. I thank you for watching, and in the next series, this is it for the introductory series. The next series we're going to start by showing you 3D Rad. We're going to take you on the tour of it, and we're going to show it to you and some of the basic features so that you can dive right in. So thanks for watching. I hope you've learned something already, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.